G'day. How are we all? As you can see, I'm once again in my conservatory. I've decided to spend most of the summer out here. So I've moved a bed out here so I can make the most of the glorious outdoors, as it were. So although it is raining and the trees are whipping around in the wind, I am cozy inside my conservatory. And I thought I would come on live and say g'day and talk about a few things, mainly body image as a woman who's lived with lipedema her entire adult life. I have lipidema, which is a connective tissue disorder. It's an inherited condition. It's triggered by estrogen changes, hormonal changes to do with puberty, pregnancy, reproductive stuff, menopause, trauma, and it was undiagnosed for, well, I started to develop symptoms when I was 15, and I did not get a diagnosis of lipedema until I was 39. So during that entire time, I went through cycles of starving myself and over-exercising, but it would not have any effect on my lipedema. I found it impossible to lose any weight from the waist down, and every time I had a baby, I had spent most of my 20s having babies. In the 90s, I spent about a collective 6 months not pregnant or breastfeeding. So that aggravated it all. So I was in the cycle of like either being like a big round pregnant moo cow, and then desperately trying to like lose weight with fad diets and diet subscription clubs and things, try and get my body, my figure back, because people would criticize me and look at me with shame and disgust and tell me to do something about my weight, and unsolicited advice all the time. I just loathed myself for the longest time, and then I got a lipedema diagnosis, which was hugely helpful, because then I understood that none of it was my fault. However, after the initial diagnosis that brings you the joy of like relief and catharsis of like it's not my fault that I haven't been able to lose weight, even though I've tried and no one's believed me. Once you accept that, then you're sort of like, and you get over the anger at like everyone in the medical community who is ignorant of the condition and never helped you with that knowledge, and instead misdiagnosed it as obesity and criticized you and like told you to go away and lose weight before they would like help you, even though you were trying to lose weight and it just wasn't working. After you go through all that stage, you then realize, of course, that you're stuck with it, because there's no actual cure for lipedema. You can have surgical intervention, as I have had. I had 36 kilos removed from my waist down, and I might get surgery again one day, but at the moment I'm just living with the condition. I'm healthy and mobile, and very grateful that I was able to access liposuction for lipedema so that I could become healthy and mobile, and I live a pretty good life. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I get around and I travel independently, and you know, I'm grateful for blessings. But I am still size 16 to 18, and that presents difficulties. It presents difficulty if you want to be taken seriously as an actor and all that sort of thing, because, you know, and it presents difficulty with, after years of programming, that my body was not worthy and that I was not welcome in public space or on people's televisions or that sort of thing, because we didn't want to promote an unhealthy image. Everyone was rake thin in Australia when I was trying to get into films and actors acts and things as a young woman. So now, as a lipedema advocate and a body positive activist, I deliberately attempt to normalise my body shape and spread awareness about lipedema and other fat and connective tissue disorders, because I don't think any woman, I don't think any person, but women traditionally have been more objectified and their bodies sort of like rated by the patriarchy more than men's bodies, and exploited more. Like we're used for like sex sells, everything from perfume to men's cologne to, you know, cigarettes, all that sort of thing, and our bodies are traded. I'm basically reclaiming my space for my body and hoping that it will be an example to other curvy women to reclaim their space and like not allow hang-ups to prevent us from feeling normal and just as worthy as anyone else. So with that in mind, you know, once upon a time, basically, once upon a time before I got the lipedema diagnosis and before I became a peep show artiste, you might have said, there was once a time when I thought I would have to commit hara-kiri if like anyone other than my doctor or even my doctor saw me naked. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, if an image of me unclothed had been leaked, for example, if an intimate photo had been taken of me and then leaked to like anyone else living in my same small hometown, let alone to the internet, if that had happened to me as a younger woman who was so deeply ashamed of my body because of all the criticism I received about it, I probably would have self-harmed. I would have become a hermit. I was pretty much a hermit anyway. I was so hung up about my body and the public gaze that I used to only go for walks like after midnight, as I was bloody Hunchback of Notre Dame, like sneaking around the rooftops, hoping to avoid like the gaze of people looking at me going, look how big she's got, and she's obviously trying to lose weight by walking, you know, because I just felt scrutiny all the time because I felt I drew the gaze because I was big. And it didn't help that in my first marriage, my first husband, may he rest in peace, and I bear him no ill will, because you see, we got together when we were teenagers, and so, you know, teenagers tease one another, particularly in Australia, you stir each other up, and he was a bit of a, you know, like a pigtail puller, right? Like he always was like, put it this way, I met my first husband when I was 13 and he was 14 on the school bus when he was going into like a polytechnic to do computing, and I was beginning my second year of high school or something. That's when we first like met and started like teasing each other on the school bus. Now, we didn't start dating then. We started dating, like we barely knew each other until several years later. But at the time I was 17, I was engaged to him because I was we were both like lonely, probably autistic children living in a small town with not a huge social peer group. So we found each other, but anyway, so in my mid-20s, when I started to get really bad lipedema conditions, lipedema symptoms, everything flared up, and I got just massive. So I felt I was like size 20, size 24, and I was still a young woman, and I was still active, like I used to still play netball and stuff, and all of a sudden it was just poof, and it happened right after I had the Depo-Provera contraceptive injection. So I just exploded. But my husband would tease me by comparing me to all the fat comedic characters very unkindly in films. For instance, do you remember that scene in Stand By Me in the pie eating competition? And when the big guy comes out onto the stage, everyone in the audience goes, boom, bada, boom, bada, boom. Well, if I stood up from the sofa to go and get like a cup of tea during the commercials, my husband would go, boom, bada, boom, as I stepped across the lounge room, and then he'd laugh. But it hurt, and I'd like laugh and roll my, I'd like laugh and roll my eyes and like, you know, but there was nothing I could do about it because he thought it was funny. He called me Mrs. Grape, as in what's eating Gilbert Grape. And in that movie, like they decide to burn the house down to spare their dead mother the indignity of having her corpse taken out by crane through the roof or the window because she was too big to get out the door properly. You know, and then one of my favourite cult films is like Meet the Feebles by Peter Jackson. It's like basically Muppets on acid, and in that there's a character called Heidi the Hippo, and she's like a tragic character who's like a beautiful musical star that has like lost her mojo, and she's put on a great deal of weight, and she's always stuffing her face with cream cake because she's depressed. And basically my husband and I both felt that was me. I was Heidi the Hippo from the Feebles. And then of course Austin Powers 2 came along, and I felt the only character in the Austin Powers series that I related to was Fat Bastard, because we had the same legs and the same, you know, shame about our bodies and eating. So I'm now reclaiming my space by saying, look, this is my body. I have the right to clothe it as I wish without people like telling me that I'm like too ugly to live and too fat to appear in public. So now I'm just like, once upon a time I would have just died if anyone knew like my age and my weight. Well, I'm nearly 55 and about 100 kilos, but only about 5'4", but that's because I have lipidema and I'm fine with who I am. So with no further ado, without any further ado, I'm going to show you the couple of dresses that I bought at the thrift shop the other day because I was so delighted to find something my size. Now I'm not wearing sexy knickers. I'm not wearing sexy knickers at all. I am wearing knickers, but I'm wearing big granny pants. See? Big granny pants, like Bridget Jones granny pants, and just, you know, and a daggy bra from Penny's. Because I'm not now, nor will I ever be, a Victoria's Secret model. That's because Victoria's Secret does not make any clothes that would fit anyone that looks like me of my age. So one has to forage for oneself, given that I don't know how to sew. And I went to the thrift shop. And this was still got the tag on it. So I went to the thrift shop. This is the Mayo Roscommon Hospice thrift shop. It's a size 16 and it was €12.50. Excuse me, I'll just wriggle in a bit. Most of my problem is that lipidema, since I had the operations that got rid of most of the lipidema tissue below my waist, the lipidema escalated in my tummy and in my arms. So now I find it really hard to find anything that has sleeves in it in which the sleeves fit. So But there you go. I really like this one. What do you reckon? And look, pocketses. Pocketses. What has it got in its pocketses? You see? You can't ask better than that. It's like, how much was it? It was 12.50 in euros. Pretty loved, of course. It seems to be missing a belt, but that's okay because I have a pretty belt in my wardrobe that I can use. It's got little bees on it, so I shall use that. So yeah. Oh, the lining sticking out, is it? Yes, it is. Let me tuck it in. But it makes me feel quite, you know. I do like a nice sort of like shirtwaist. I feel quite, you know, Grace Kelly-ish. You know, got a bit of cleavage, but like it hides things in a feminine way. I feel like I'm a real girl. So, you know, I think I'm about the same age as Kate Moss. I wouldn't be much older than Kate Moss anyway. But Kate Moss in my 20s, which was her 20s as well, was basically the bane of my fucking existence. Imagine like looking like me, because I looked basically like me when in my 20s as much as I looked like me in my 50s. But imagine looking like this and wanting to be like an actor in the 90s when the ideal woman was Kate Moss, literally like size 0, and I was size 16, 18. I was, you know, and then you look, and then it's changed now. Thankfully, there's more diverse range of bodies displayed in advertising and in films and that sort of thing. And that's when in the 90s, towards the end of the 90s, that's when it started to change. Like there were films, you know, like the Muriel's Wedding, for example. Muriel was played by Toni Collette, and she was meant to be seen as curvy then. And Bridget, that was in the 90s. But no, you look at like Muriel's Wedding, you think Toni Collette was not big in that film, but she was seen as big and curvy. The thing I loved most about Toni Collette in that film is in an post-movie interview, she was asked, you know, about gaining the weight for the role, and she said she thought her new curves were sexy, and she was in no rush to lose the weight and get back to her pre-film weight. Whereas when Renee Zellweger put on weight to play Bridget Jones, when she was asked how she'd feel if she didn't get back to pre-film weight, she said she would kill herself. And one of those women has gone on to basically change her entire appearance, like Revenge of the Body Snatchers, through plastic surgery. And one of them has not. And the person who has not was Toni Collette, who has been happy with herself since 1992. I probably should, you know, undo the buttons, but I'm not going to. Hang on, it's caught on my watch. Back in a second. You see, perhaps that's another reason Kate Moss became a supermodel for millions of quid, and I did not. Was not very good at dressing myself, as you can see. Now this little number, I love this number. This was also $12.50 from the Mayo Roscommon Hospice in Castlebar in Mayo. There we go. No pockets, but I think this is really pretty. I feel really pretty in this dress. So there, you know, I have to accept my jelly for the moment. It's not getting my way. I have taken up horseback riding again, and last week I went and had a riding lesson, and I trotted over poles, and I had a fabulous time on a Welsh steed, of course, because I'm still heavy, so I have to have a horse that can carry a heavy load. But I'm still doing it. So there you go. So once upon a time, there was a time when I thought I would never ever get to ride horses ever, because particularly in Australia, where all the horses aren't really load carrying. They have like very thin-legged stock horses and thoroughbreds for pleasure horses and dressage horses, but then they do not have big sort of chunky horses the way they do in Ireland, like sport horses and Welsh steed cobs, where a girl like me can be a late bloomer and become a bit of a galloping granny, as it were. All right. Well, thank you, chaps, for watching and for joining me. Thank you, everyone who joins my channel as a member. People like Junior, thank you so much. Thank you, people like Julian Porter and, let me see, Rod Satterwaite, and people for commenting on my lives. And thank you all my new subscribers especially, and all my new viewers. It was like, I'm very, very happy that everyone tunes in to listen to what I have to say and share what I have to share. And I'll see you when you got nothing on.